artist who's taken a unique form of her work and created a powerful therapy, a mask-making workshop for survivors of childhood trauma and abuse. Katheryn Trenshaw joins me in the studio now. Good morning.
Hi.
Katheryn, you're first and foremost, I know, an artist, and you're also a survivor of sexual abuse. How did you come around to making masks? Was that a way that you got through what had happened to you?
Yeah, well, basically, I actually did my studies in psychology, so that's my kind of academic background, and fine art, which you can do in America. And when I was doing my own therapeutic process, it was one of those aha moments where I was in therapy, and my therapist said, "Well, geez, Katheryn, you're not you're a therapist, you're an artist. Why don't you express some of these things through your art?" And it was an incredible turning point for me, where it was like, of course, why didn't I think of this? It just took an objective third party to kind of say the obvious.
Do you think you'd already been doing that anyway, just hadn't
Well, I was
realised?
already working in masks, ironically, and the mask is such a powerful form because it's so ancient and because it penetrates all cultures, but also because it's a way of speaking a language of psychology that works quite well. And the thing about the work that I do and the work that I'm interested in as well is creating a kind of alternative or complement to traditional talk therapy, which tends to be very heady. So when you get into movement, you get into dance, you get into ritual, you get into art, you're talking about whole body expression where you can say 1,000 words with one gesture or with one sort of simple image.
Now, I know it's been successful in America, and we've already discussed while that music was playing that the British are very different. I mean, do you think the people here are going to pick up on this?
Well, I think actually, in the journalists that I have spoken to in England, which, I think they're quite frightened of the subject. It's like, oh my gosh, how American to be so in your face, right? But I think that the English, the feedback that I've gotten from lectures I've given at St. James's Piccadilly and the different things I've done, they're so hungry actually for this kind of work. It's just not available. And ironically, art therapy, one of the earliest places it developed is in England. I mean, it's really something that's been around, but there's kind of, there's definitely a kind of stereotypical thing that is about being a bit stuffy, or I don't know what it is. That's not quite the right word, but, kind of not overt, say, to talk about personal issues.
So what exactly happens at your workshops? Do you also talk about the issues and then you do some
It
art?
doesn't really I mean, we may do. It depends on the group, but basically it's more about dealing with the kind of emotions that come out of the experience. How can we express and kind of give a form to the different things that we're dealing with the different masks that we have? So for instance, one example of an exercise is where we relinquish baggage. So a mask, say that, I do a guided imagery and you go into this gallery of masks, and what does that mask look like? The one you really need to let go of now that you're ready to let go of. Give it a form and then move with it and do exercises with it.
Is that the important thing, to give it a form? Because otherwise you can't get rid of it because it doesn't exactly exist.
If you can't acknowledge it, if you don't know that it exists, how on earth can you ever kind of release it? And it's also a matter of thanking it. I mean, this part of you that you're releasing, it's not like it, you would think, oh, people would want to get rid of that stuff. But actually, there's also a need for ritual to kind of say, okay, thank you. You've served me well, for whatever reason, this thing that you're releasing then is a survival skill. Maybe it's like the smiling, happy face you put on to survive as a kid because you were told you had to, say something nice or don't say anything at all. And my favorite expression. But, now it's like, okay, that served you well and you need to thank it. But then, perhaps it's time to let that go. And that's up to each individual, what they let go of. And
So what do people do with the masks? Do they take them away? Do they just leave them there because that's it? That's over?
Everyone does something different. We create and we brainstorm about different ideas to actually create rituals. And we do, at the culmination of the workshop for the weekend is actually a ritual theater where we actually, perhaps some people destroy them, some people stomp on them, some people throw them. Some people wait till they're dry because they make a better noise when they're dry because we're working in clay. And some people just choose to kind of do the ritual and decide later. But whatever they do it consciously. So we create kind of splitting the group into 2 or 3 groups. So half of the workshop, for instance, will watch, and the other half will kind of quote unquote perform a ritual together, weaving their stories together and finding the commonalities and the differences in their stories.
And what sort of masks
It's
have
very
you had?
powerful.
Yeah, I've seen you brought in the pictures of some of the masks, and some of them are actually very I find masks scary anyway, but some of these are really...
They're very powerful.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things about masks is that people often say when they see the exhibit, for instance, they'll touch their bellies and they'll say, oh, God, I really feel that here. And it's brilliant because that means they're not in their head. They're really accessing from a kind of full body place then what they're doing. And this work is a lot about being in our bodies and accessing that information that you really can't, there's this guardian here who censors feelings often up in our heads, they can't see my hand. And, it's just a matter of getting down to that. And something about making masks really just accesses that right away. And also just being quiet and
Have,
being with an intention in one space.
have you made masks to deal with the things that happened to you in the past?
Well, this whole series of workshops that I do actually stems out of an exhibit that I did called Breaking the Silence. And that exhibit has toured around the United States and Europe. It hasn't been to England yet, and we're working on that. And I'm hoping to have it in England sometime next year and need help to do that. But yeah, it's about 100 pieces, actually, that I did in almost all of them in a year.
So you didn't
it was
stamp on
very
yours or get rid of
intense.
them, or no, you've kept all yours.
Well, some of them break in the process. I mean, actually, the process I've chosen to do for my exhibit that tours is Raku fired pieces. They're ceramic, and it's a very volatile form. So and it's a beautiful parallel to the healing process, because when you fire the pieces, they go into like a kiln and they come out very quickly. They heat up very quickly. You pull them out, and then you put them into combustible materials like burning straw or something. And then flames fly up and there's smoke. And in the end, you go through this very harsh process. There's very quick, very harsh temperature changes, and you never know what you're going to get in the end. And a lot of pieces explode, a lot of pieces crack, a lot of pieces break, and when they explode, they take others with them, blah, blah, blah. The process is just like healing from sexual abuse. It's like you go into the fire, you don't know what you're going to get on the other side, and only through this particular process of going through the fire, and this very risky process, can you get these metallic golds and beautiful coppers and greens and blues and reds and things, and you never know until you're all the way through what you get. You have no way of predicting. It's beautiful.
Now, you've got a workshop taking place in London this weekend. How does it feel actually to have people unmask their feelings? I mean, are you able then to deal with those feelings, or is it then up to them to what they do with their feelings? What I'm trying to work out is, is there anyone there to give help and guidance once they've unmasked some sort of feeling?
Right. Well, I'm there, and then I always have a crisis intervention person there. So somebody basically to help me hold the space, or rather to allow me to continue to hold the space while, if there is a kind of crisis that happens, there's someone else there as well to help. And the workshops are geared to people who've done a bit of therapy already, or who've done a bit of work. It's not for people who just remembered yesterday, God, my brother sexually abused me when I was a kid. It's really for people who've already looked at it and who are wanting to move further. And
I can imagine that otherwise, because if you haven't done any therapy at all, to go into this would be quite difficult.
Well, and I also ask people to have access to support afterwards as well,
Right.
because it can open up a lot and it can enter your dreams. And I don't want to be irresponsible about that either. And I do everything that I can to make the space safe, but also to look after making sure they know about the resources that are available, and making sure they have their own personal resources as well.
Right. So it gets underway tomorrow.
Yes, tomorrow night.
Right, and there are still places. Right.
Yeah.
Katheryn's workshop, like she said, is running this weekend. If you'd like more information, we've got a number for you. It's 0171 287 6711. 0171 287 6711. And where's the venue? The Institute for Arts in Therapy and Education, which is in Windsor Street.
Right, but it's through Alternatives, St.
Right.
James's Piccadilly
Okay,
Alternatives. Yeah.
lovely. Thank you very much indeed for coming in and talking to us.
Thank you.
That's Katheryn Trenshaw. And as we said, her workshop taking place this weekend. The number again, 0171 287 6711. You're listening to Viva 963 AM.